Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video, and of course it's yet another 2022 AFL season review. This time it is on the Gold Coast Suns. So the Gold Coast Suns, I think, in my opinion, you guys can have your opinions if you want to, had a very impressive season. Of course, last year they finished 16th for only 7 wins. They had a bit of a glimpse of what they can do at their best. I personally thought that they were going to be wooden spooners and still due to get sacked because, of course, with Ben King out with his ACL injury, I thought, well, that they got no chance of doing something in 2022. Well, I was dead set wrong because they finished 12th with 10 wins to their name, which equals their best season in terms of wins, equaling 2014. The first time they had a percentage of over 100 points, 102.8 to be exact. Which is very encouraging for them. Really. Before we move on, I want to respond to speaking about the Gold Coast Suns. In my opinion, obviously, I think they've been judged very, very harshly. I think, in my personal opinion, what Matty Lloyd has said, what Kane Corns has said. A lot of other people said that they wouldn't take a pass mark. But I mean, are you kidding me? Like we always pan the Gold Coast Suns for having terrible seasons and finishing down the bottom of the ladder. Then finally they do something good, and we still don't give it. Still think it's not enough. Come on. I mean, it's just now it's getting ridiculous now that we've got and before and not. I'm not being totally naive. Yes, I know that they had the chance to play finals this year. They didn't take it. But let's just say that. Let me ask you this question: when have the Gold Coast Suns entered round 21 still with a chance of making finals? Never. They've never done that before. And to think, oh, they're not deserve a pass mark this season? Well, that's just bullshit, in my opinion. That's just completely utter bullshit. And I know, I have full respect for Cornsey and Lloydie and all these experts, but what they're saying about the Gold Coast Suns is complete and utter bullshit about the Gold Coast Suns. They and I don't care what anyone else says about me about the Gold Coast Suns. They had a very impressive season, in my opinion, and I think Gold Coast Suns fans should be very excited about their future. Speaking about their future, before I move on with their highlights and all that, for the last month, I've had this thought, of this comparison. The Gold Coast Suns of 2022. I think this reminds me a bit of St Kilda in 2003, before their era from 04 to 2011, where they went on. I think they only missed the finals once, and they made a couple of prelims. They made several prelims. Made a couple of grand finals. I'm not going to say 3 of them because the grand final replay in 2010 doesn't count. So yeah. And even Damien Barrett even compared them to the 95 Brisbane Bears side that just scraped through to the finals, and then the next year, obviously, they went one step. They were one win away from making the grand final in '96. So yeah, but this is my comparison I'm going to go with. So firstly, the age and experience and age of the team. Now of course, hands down, the St Kilda 03 side dominates that. Of course, they were 6th in the league that year in terms of experience. They had 62 just a tick under 63 games worth of experience in their squad, while for the Gold Coast Suns this year they had 52.2, which was games which was 17th in the AFL this year in terms of that. But the age though is quite alarming here, because the Gold Coast Suns have a 0.7%, let me say it again, 0.7 in age older than the 2003 St Kilda side. So both of these sides were St Kilda's side it was full of youngsters, a handful of experienced players, but still a lot of youngsters. The same too for the Gold Coast Suns, and which we'll get to in a bit. The experienced players. So, for example, in St Kilda in 2003, they still had Nathan Burke, Robert Harvey. They had and these ones also are 27 years and older as well. So they had Pickett, Thompson, Capuano, the big G man Fraser Gehrig, and Craig Callahan, who was 27 at the time. Then compared it with the Gold Coast Suns experienced players, they have Levi Casbolt, they had Levi Casbolt, they had Thompson, Day, Sam Day, Witts as well, Swallow, Ellis, who's a former Tiger, Sexton, and then of course you got Collins, Lemons, and Atkins, who is of course a former Crow himself. So yeah. But the big thing about these two sides was the young players that they had at their disposal. St Kilda in 2003, and for the 03 side, this is based off of who played a pivotal role in the next year in 2004 when they just missed out making the grand final. I mean, listen to these names. You got Goddard in there. You got as I said, Brendan Goddard in there, Michael Maguire, Luke Ball, who was 18 at that stage, Del Santo Montagna and Xavier Clark, who were both 19. Then the two stars, the two best, probably some would argue the two best in this list. Nick Revolt and Justin Kaczynski, who were both 20 years of age at that time. They were drafted in the same draft class. You got Schwartz at 21. You got Blake, Penny, Noble, and Stephen Baker, who were both 22 years of age. And then you got Wolf, Milne, Hayes, and Aaron Black, who were 23 at that time in 2003. That is a massive. Those some of them are probably some of them are probably future legends of the game, future Hall of Famers, future legends of the game. Just unbelievably big names. And then compare that to the Gold Coast Suns youngsters. I mean, you got Davies, Sharp, Flanders, Matt Rao, and Malcolm Roses, who are 20 years of age. Who are 20. You got Connor Butterick, Noah Anderson. We'll get to him in a bit later on. You got Graham, Jack Lukosius, and of course Isaac Rankin. That one's a bit of an asterisk next to his name because obviously he's going to go to the Crows, which we'll talk about that topic in a bit also. We were all 21 years of age. Then you got Powell, Ballard, and Charlie Constable, a former Geelong player, who are 22. Both of them are 22 years of age, who are going to be turning 23 when next season rolls around. So a lot of these Gold Coast Suns youngsters like Rao, Roses, Butterick, Anderson, of course Rankin. You have to include him in there, even though he's going to go to another club. And Ballard on that list I just named, they're possibly, if at their best, could be superstars of the game. So that's why I believe how Gold Coast Suns are overpaying for youngsters like Ben King and all that to try and keep those keep them at the club, because they're going to be superstars in the future. So you have to keep them. And then you got the direction comparison. I mean, both of these sides in 2000 and 2019 have come off of them winning the wooden spoon. Obviously, very different eras. Obviously, 2016 team competition, and of course 2019-18 team competition. But St Kilda, they finished 15th and 15th in 2001 and 2002. Most notably in 2001 when they were under Malcolm Blight, and of course it didn't go right there, and of course he got the sack 15 games into the season. Ironically, his last game of coaching was against the Adelaide Crows. So when they got smashed to the tune, I think it was 97 points, I believe, in the end. How ironically that Adelaide beat St Kilda for the 1997 premiership. Just a fun fact there. 15th, they showed sign. It was like it's like for the Gold. It's the same for the Gold Coast Suns. I think they showed a glimpse of. They showed a glimpse of what they can do in 2020. 2021. 2020 was a teaser. 2021 was a bit of a 2020 was a bit of a teaser. 2021 teaser of what was going on. 2021 was a bit of a sneak peek at what they can do. 2022 was, of course, I like to call the entree. And I believe that in 2023, if they continue on this, I believe they will serve the main course. And when I mean the main course, I mean making finals. So yeah. And then of course in 2003 for the Saints, they won 11 games in 2003. Of course, they finished 11th on the ladder. They lost 11. So that year their lucky number was 11. So yeah. Now comparisons now to the 03 and 2022 seasons. So St Kilda 03 side finished better. Of course, they finished 11th. The Gold Coast Suns side obviously finished 12th. One win better for the St Kilda side. For that St Kilda side, 11 wins compared to 10. The Gold Coast Suns got a better percentage. They had 102.8 compared to St Kilda in 2003's 95.79. And of course, the points are pretty much straightforward. In comparison to their biggest win, St Kilda's biggest win in 2003 was undoubtedly against Carlton in round 20 when they smashed into the tune of 91 points. And of course, that was when Carlton were really starting their so-called 20-year rebuild, which hopefully which some thought was coming to fruition this year. which wasn't the case. While Gold Coast's biggest wins were both from were 2 games. Hawthorn in round 11, they just completely smashed Hawthorn. I watched most of the second half in that game, and they totally blew Hawthorn out of the water. I mean, Hawthorn were lucky that it was only 67 points, and it would have been more. It probably would have been upwards about 80 points if Gold Coast had put their foot to the throat. And then the other 67-point win was, of course, the final round of the season against North Melbourne. Even though for them the season was a bit of a dead rubber. And of course, it was North Melbourne who, of course, were wooden spooners. Their biggest loss, the Gold Coast was better. They got beaten, of course, by Geelong, who of course were the minor premiers. They finished, of course, they minor premiers. They lost to the tune of 60 points, while West Coast St Kilda biggest loss in 2003 was the game against West Coast in round 3, where they lost by 70 points. So yeah. In comparison here, so the wins by 10 goals wins by 10 goals plus. St Kilda in 03 won 4 times by 10 goals or more, while the Gold Coast Suns won 3 times over 10 goals and 10 goals or more. On the flip side of things, losses by 10 goals plus. St Kilda in 03 lost 3 times by 10 goals plus, while the Gold Coast Suns only lost once, ironically, which was in the second last game of the season against Geelong. So which was pretty encouraging for them. And then on the flip side of things, wins by a goal or less. St Kilda had won twice by under a goal. The most notable one being, of course, against reigning premiers Brisbane, of course, and eventual premiers Brisbane in that year. And only the 2 wins by a goal. The most notable one, which I'll talk about in a bit, was the Noah Anderson kick after the siren. So yeah, which was, of course, the most notable one. On the flip side of things, the losses by a goal or less. St Kilda 03 didn't lose any by a goal or less. Gold Coast twice. Both of them were against Port Adelaide and Collingwood. Some doubters would have been if they had won both, if it had been reversed and won both of those games, there probably could have been a chance of playing finals this year, but they didn't. So yeah. So then the next season, for St Kilda in 2004, the next year, they went from 11th in 2003 to 3rd in 2004. Their youngsters in Revolt, Kaczynski, Milne, Ball, Hayes really came to the fore that year. Harvey did, of course, the experienced ones. Harvey did his bit. Did his bit, and obviously it was the first year that they didn't have Nathan Burke, who'd retired at the end of 2003. So, retired at the end of 2003. So basically, and from 11 wins, they went to 16 wins and 6 losses in that year. With a percentage of 127.97, they won a lot of games they thumped a lot of teams that year. in particular in the first 10 rounds. And obviously, of course, they fell short in the prelim against Port Adelaide in that year. Their biggest win that year was, of course, in round 10 against Carlton to the tune of 108 points. That was when they almost cracked the 200 point barrier. And I think I think Fraser Gehry kicked nine goals in that game, I believe, and a lot of others did so as well, contributed as well. Their biggest loss was undoubtedly the qualifying final against Brisbane, smashed to the tune of 80 points. It was basically, of course, the youngster, of course, St Kilda had a lot of youngsters who were experiencing their first finals, while on the other hand, on the other side, Brisbane had just come off of 3 premierships in a row. So what does that tell you? With that, so the wins, so St Kilda had won 5 games by 10 goals plus. Then lost only once by 10 goals plus, which was, of course, the qualifying final, as I said, against Brisbane. Won by a goal less again, which was Brisbane in that controversial game where a point was given where it shouldn't have, and then Troy Schwartz kicked that goal. And fun fact, when he was replacing Hamill, I think Hamill was injured, I believe. And was a late replacement, and was replaced late by Troy Schwartz, who went on to kick the winning goal in that game. Probably that game, maybe a future Braybox episode. A bit of a sneaky. And losses by a goal or less. That was, of course, the prelim against Port. So yeah. So, moving on to Gold Coast in 2023, if they improve their standards, if Stuart Dew revises his team and says, you know what, our expectations are to eye off a effing final series. I want you guys to push yourselves to the limit. I think Stewie Dew would do that. I think the club made the right decision of re-signing him for the next 2 years. They could have just lied down and said, we unfortunately, Stewie, we're going to sack you and replace you with Clarko. But they didn't do that. Probably the AFL probably would have pushed them to do that, but the Gold Coast Suns board and that said no, we're keeping Stuart Dew. So yeah. So I think if Stuart Dew pushes them to lift their to lift the club standards, that means the club would lift their standards. Then if they put their minds to it, they can. I'm not saying that they're going to repeat what St Kilda did in 04, and that's finish top 4 and win their first 10 games. I'm not saying that, but at least target a maiden finals appearance in 2023 for the Gold Coast Suns. I think for them, I think the Gold Coast Suns fans are overseeing going to see a bright future for the Gold Coast Suns this year. So what I'm saying is like I'm not saying the Gold Coast Suns are going to finish top 4 next year, and then obviously they go on this magnificent run where they have it goes finals after finals after finals and falling short. I'm not saying that because ultimately, you never know, probably next year that I'd say this and then 2023 they finish down the bottom again. But I think this season if they do become, this side does become successful in the future, I think this season is where it was basically where it was ignited it was the start of the era of the Gold Coast Suns. So yeah. So now back on to the usual part of this. So the highlight for this season, undoubtedly, it was the round 17 win against Richmond. Undoubtedly, no other. It was what else was I going to choose for the highlight of their season? That kick from Noah Anderson. I mean, his game, I think he had like 30 odd touches and kicked 2 goals. And I think took like 7, and also several marks and tackles and that. And I think, I looked at the stats at Noah Anderson's game in that game against Richmond. And I said, well, if he doesn't get Brownlow votes in this game, there's going to be something wrong. So yeah. Which I'll talk about Noah Anderson later. Speak about that. I think it's got to be. It has to be. It has to be their best win in the AFL. I mean, some might say that their win last year was against the Tigers was better because obviously it was at Marvel Stadium. Even though I think it was a Gold Coast home game, it was at Marvel Stadium, but they normally don't go well at Marvel anyways. We all thought it was better, but this one tops. I mean, they were down to the tune of 40 points at some stage. I think it was in the second quarter, or second or third quarter, and they came storming home to win that one. To win that one, which was fantastic. The lowlights, obviously, the consecutive tight losses against Port Adelaide and Collingwood, that undoubtedly cost them a finals berth. If they had won both of those tight games straight up, they would probably be playing finals. Can't do the math, but obviously they would have made finals anyways. The round 18 loss against Essendon, I watched all of this game, and even though as an Essendon supporter, I was glad that Essendon won, I was a wee bit disappointed because I thought the Suns would make more of a challenge of it, but unfortunately, and especially when we kicked the first 3 goals of the game, they kicked the next 3 goals to make it sort of even at quarter time, and I thought, oh, okay, it's going to be a game. Unfortunately, that was the end of it because obviously Essendon and more specifically Sam Draper just absolutely killed them. Which, by the way, I hope Sam Draper gets goal of the year. Even though it's probably going to be Dacos. So yeah, and then of course the Hawthorn game. They had their chances to They had their chances in that last quarter in that game against Hawthorn to win that game and keep their finals hopes alive. Keep their very, very slim finals hopes alive. But unfortunately, they didn't do it. They lost by 7 points, and that was pretty much the end of their finals hopes because basically next week they got smashed by Geelong. So yeah. So those were the lowlights of Gold Coast season. I think if things went their way, especially against the Port and Collingwood game, and then of course in the Hawthorn game they kicked straight, then that was perhaps 3 wins for the year that would have counted towards them making finals, and they would have got 13 wins instead of the 10. So yeah. Mark them out of 10. I think they're a 5.5 out of 10. A 5.5 out of 10. Some of them probably would have gone with a 4. Maybe some of them maybe gone with a 3 for their season or for a 4 or 4.5. Maybe not 3, but at least 4 to 4.5. because ultimately they had the chance of making finals, but they didn't. I think for me, 5.5. I mean, as I said, I tipped them to win the wooden spoon, and predicted that Stuart Dew would get sacked in place of Alistair Clarkson. As I said, and Clarko would replace him. That didn't happen. They finished 12th. They won 10 games. Stuart Dew was kept. It will be kept for another 2 years. So yeah. And to do this without having Ben King in their side, and I'll talk about Ben King in a bit later on, is a massive thing because Ben King has been the one that's been mostly kicking the goals for the Suns. So yeah. Now to the players. Now to the players. Took Miller. I mean, went in the All-Australian team. Of course, won Gold Coast Best and Fairest again. And according to the Brownlow predictor on AFL.com.au, he should win. Is the main favourite for the Brownlow. With 30 votes compared to obviously the others with Oliver and all that being with 29 votes. So and the statistics here show you why. Of course he has averaged 28 and a half touches a game, which is 10th in the AFL. The contested possessions 15.2 per game, 4th in the AFL in that area. In kicks, 14th in the AFL, with an average of 17 kicks per game. The big one, he's ranked second in the AFL in terms of clearances. He's averaging 7.9 clearances per game. 12th in the AFL for metres gained with 521.1 metres gained per game. And the only thing that he's lower down on is, of course, his scoring involvement for 5.7 scoring involvements per game. I think he, in terms of, I think he's a bigger chance than what everyone else thinks that he might be a contender for the Brownlow. Some people might think he's a Brownlow smoky for the Brownlow. I think he's more a favourite for the Brownlow, and I don't like quoting betting, because obviously some of you guys probably watching this are mostly kids, so I don't want to do it, but I have to on this occasion. I think he's about $7 to win the Brownlow. So which is big for someone who, as I said, according to the Brownlow predictor, he should win the Brownlow. He's the main favourite for the Brownlow. Surprising. So yeah. So I think so. I'll get to, of course, when I get to the Brownlow. I'll over the next 4 weeks, I will look into every single game and stats wise, and see who I think's best. So yeah. Another one who's been, of course, Jared Witts. Obviously, he's one of the best ruckmen in the league, and the most underrated ruckman in the league. I don't know why Collingwood got rid of him. I know they had Grundy, and Grundy is, of course, at his best is better than Witts. But excuse me, but I don't know why that they let go of him, because he's become a far better player at the Gold Coast Suns than he ever was at Collingwood, to be honest. And I think if it wasn't, and you probably would be an Australian if it wasn't for the fact that Max Gawn is in true form at the moment. So yeah. Isaac Rankin is next up. He, of course, we all know he's going to, he's requested a trade to the Adelaide Crows. And apparently there's reports that that contract that he's going to sign is worth around 800 to 850 grand a year, which I don't think he's worth that money. I don't think he's worth 800k a year. For these reasons. So he's got so let you. These are the small forwards like Rankin who are better than him, who probably are worth that money, or even more than that, or probably even currently on more than that, than 800k a year. Bailey Fritsch, 50 goals, averaging 2.3 goals per game. Charlie Cameron, 47 goals, 2.1 per game. Isaac Heaney, 46 goals, again 2.1 goals per game. Stengel, again 46 goals, again 2.1 goals per game. Bruce, 40 goals, just 1.9 goals per game. Rankin, 29 goals for the year at 1.6 goals per game. And to make matters worse, also, for his whole career as a whole since 2020, he's kicked 57 goals in 48 games, which due to quick math is 1.2 goals per game. Which probably, excuse me. Judging by his stats for this year, I know he's made a big improvement this year, but the likes of Fritsch, Cameron, Heaney, Stengel, and Bruce are probably worth 800k a year. Some of them even are probably worth even more than that. But Rankin's he's only kicked 57 goals in under 50 games at just over a goal a game, and apparently and Adelaide are going to give him 800k a year. He's not worth that money, to be honest. Some people in the comments might think differently, but I think he's not worth 800k a year. At the moment, I think, as I've said in my Adelaide review, in my Adelaide season review, and my BD trade talk episode, maybe some people said maybe they can. The only way they can give him that money is making him a midfielder, a midfielder that goes forward. That's probably the only way that he does that, and does that really. So to end on that topic, straight up, he's not worth 800k a year. Straight up, right with that. Next player, which really went good this year, was Matt Rao. Of course, this year he played all 22 games. In contrast, he only played 17 games in the last 2 years. Obviously, he set the world on fire when he started his career in 2020. And then 2020, but it's just been savaged by injuries and that. This year, I was very happy to see him play all 22 games and consistent run together. Averaging 18.5 touches a game, and of course, made 158 tackles at 7.2 per game, which he was up there in among the best tacklers in the game this year. So hopefully we'll see more of Matt Rao in 2023. Hopefully he plays another 20 odd games or 19 or 18 games, something like that, and hopefully doesn't get interrupted by injury again, hopefully. as well. Next one is, of course, his great buddy in Noah Anderson. Now, some people before when of course, when Matt Rowett went in at pick 1 and Noah Anderson went at pick 2, everybody was focused on Matt Rowett, on the hype of Matt Rowett, but not on Noah Anderson. But I think the last 2 seasons, I think he's really shown that he is not Robin to Matt Rowett's Batman. He certainly held his own in the midfield. I mean, he's averaging for the last 2 seasons, he's averaging 24 under 24 and a half touches a game. Scored 11. He scored 11 goals, all of them this year, which adds a bit of a string to his bow that actually he can actually score goals. Go into midfield and then of course go forward and score goals. This year he definitely went another level. This year he played 21 games, averaging 26 averaging over 26 touches a game, and of course he kicked 11 goals, which is for the first time in his career he's kicked double-figure goals in a season. With one of the goals being the goal after the siren against Richmond. I think I've mentioned that about 3 or 4 times. Sorry to Richmond supporters out there who are watching this. Sorry for rubbing it in. And I'm going to continue to rubbing it in because next one is Marvia Chol. Actually, I might put him and Casbolt in the same conversation as well. Those two have to be the top 5 best recruits of the year, straight up. Because Marvia Chol, he only kicked 24 goals in 31 games in the 5 or 6 seasons he was at Richmond. Which do the math, that is not even close to being under a goal a game for someone who can ruck and play and go and can also play forward. It seemed like to me that that it's sort of familiar how I think Marvia Chol's season, I think, is more familiar to Peter Wright's season at Essendon. Because Peter Wright, of course, he was mostly last year playing ruck forward because, of course, Sam Draper was out for pretty much most of the season. And then or for half the season. The same thing. I think if Marvia Chol was at the Gold Coast Suns last year, he would not have had this kind of impact because obviously Witts was out for most of that year as well. But he did. I think he did capitalise on Witts playing every single game this year because I mean, from 24 goals in 31 games in 5 seasons at Richmond to 44 goals in 22 games in 1 season at the Suns. That is absolutely bonkers for King Marvia, who is vastly becoming one of my favourite players. Not because he left Richmond, but because he's playing unbelievably well. And the same too for Levi Casbolt. I mean, I love my favourite moment of him for the year, where I think he kicked the goal against Carlton early in the season, and it was right in front of the Carlton cheer squad, and he did this right in front of the Carlton cheer squad. That was absolutely still gives me a bit of a chuckle every time I see it, because ultimately, as you guys know, they, of course, Carlton gave Casbolt the arse out of Carlton, and of course, Gold Coast side, you know what, mate? Well, come to us, mate. You want you want AFL footy? Come to us, mate. And of course, he had in terms of goals the best season he's had since overtaking his 2017 season with 34 goals. I think he's really reborn there at the Gold Coast Suns. So yeah. Now finally get to under pressure. Who's under pressure? Originally I wrote here Ben King, but I think it's more the key forwards because, of course, with Ben King coming back next year, you got Chol, you got Casbolt in the side as well, and also you got Sam Day to think about as well. That's 4 key forwards in there. 4 key forwards are not going to go into 2 positions, which are, or technically 3 positions, which are full forward, centre forward, and possibly on the bench. One of them's going to have to miss out, which unfortunately that might have to be, judging by this, has to be Sam Day. I think that there could be the possibility that maybe they can put Mabior Chol as a ruck forward. Maybe put him in the ruck when Witts is off the ground, having a spell, and then of course you have Casbolt and King at a centre forward and full forward. So that might be the mix they might possibly maybe go with. That's just my opinion. But it's gonna be a lot to it's gonna be exciting for the Suns because every single time it's often go to Ben King. A lot of the times that was until of course he had the ACL and everyone thought, how's this gonna work out for the Suns? So it's worked out well because obviously Casbolt and Chol have made big impacts. And it's only, and we just hope that they have a better season. So I'm gonna end this review here because I'm almost gone 47 minutes on this review, the longest so far, and of course, one I've been looking forward to because obviously the Suns played magnificent footy this year, even though they didn't make the finals, and two, I got them ridiculously wrong. So yeah. So like this video, share this to anybody who is a Gold Coast Suns fan. Comment down below. Do you think the journalists were harsh on the Gold Coast Suns season this year? Do you think they were harsh, or do you think it was justified that they said they not be a pass mark? I'd like to hear your opinions in the comments. And somewhere down there is the big red button. Press the big red button, which is labeled subscribe. So until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the Gold Coast sun shine. Gold Coast. That was terrible. Let me do it again. Wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on you.